Hello and welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're undertaking a truly massive deep dive, one that really touches every single aspect of our lives, both personal and professional.
It really does.
We are talking about the science of change itself. I mean, we all set these huge, inspiring goals, don't we? The big dreams, the professional breakthroughs, the promise to finally get healthier.
Absolutely. The intention is always so strong, isn't it? January 1st, Monday morning, the start of a new quarter, you feel this incredible surge of energy.
A clean slate.
A clean slate. You have the vision, you have the motivation, you know exactly what you should be doing.
We do. We buy the equipment, we download the apps, we read the books, we're, sprinting toward the finish line. But then what happens? 2 weeks in, maybe a month, if we're really lucky?
If you're lucky.
That initial surge just runs dry. And that's where the wall is, that struggle to make those big, profound changes actually stick.
That is the universal struggle, and it's why so many of us end up feeling like failures, cycling through the exact same resolutions year after year after year.
It's exhausting.
It is. And the core problem, as the material we've synthesized today really points out, is that we rely on two things that are just incredibly unreliable.
Oh, what are those?
Sheer willpower and temporary motivation.
Willpower. The ultimate finite resource.
Exactly. Think of motivation like a temporary adrenaline spike. It's great for getting you out of immediate danger or, say, launching a project.
It's for a short burst.
But it is not sustained fuel. It burns hot and it burns fast. You simply cannot rely on a temporary feeling to power a long-term system. It just doesn't work.
So real, lasting transformation requires something, more systematic, more predictable than just waking up and wishing you felt like doing the work.
That's it. It's about building a system.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We're working from a really comprehensive blueprint that moves way beyond those quick fix motivation tactics.
Yep.
This material is rooted in behavioral psychology and neuroscience, giving us a practical, step-by-step methodology for turning aspirations into automatic actions.
It's about transforming you, the listener, from someone who's merely reacting to circumstances into the intentional architect of your own daily life.
I love that phrase, the intentional architect.
It's not just theory, it's a manual. We're going to pull out the most powerful insights today. We're going to start with the fundamental mechanics, how the brain actually creates habits through something called the habit loop.
Okay, so the why.
The why. Then we'll unlock the practical toolkit, the famous 4 laws of behavior change.
How.
And finally, we'll dive into the deeper strategies you need for long-term mastery, addressing the psychological challenges like boredom and what happens when you inevitably fall off track.
Okay, let's unpack this.
We absolutely have to begin with the brain. I mean, if we understand why the brain creates habits in the first place, we can stop fighting against ourselves and start working with our own biology.
That feels like a much better approach.
The scientific definition of a habit really starts with efficiency. Your brain is, for all intents and purposes, a super efficient machine. It is constantly looking for energy savings.
It's a brilliant, lazy genius, essentially.
Precisely. Making conscious decisions. Should I do this? What should I do next? How should I start this task? That requires an enormous amount of energy.
Cognitive load.
A huge cognitive load. Habits are the brain's way of reducing that load. It automates routine actions so you can spend your conscious energy on novel problems, like figuring out how to navigate a crisis or learn a new skill.
So every time we repeat an action, the brain basically says, oh, I see a pattern here. Let's create a shortcut. And that's the creation of the neural pathway.
That's exactly right. And it's a literal pathway. Imagine a pristine forest floor, totally untouched. The first time you walk across it, it's hard. You're pushing through brush and leaves.
That's the conscious decision. It takes effort.
A lot of effort. The 10th time, though, there's a discernible track. The 100th time, it's a paved road, and you can walk it while talking on your phone or thinking about something else entirely. That neural pathway is that paved road. It becomes the path of least resistance.
And that automatic low-energy path is the habit. And the powerful insight here is that all habits, good, bad, or totally neutral, are governed by the same 4-stage cycle. This is the influential framework known as the habit loop.
Every single time a habit is performed, the brain is running through this 4-stage cycle. And if you can identify where you are in the cycle, you know exactly where and how to intervene.
That's the key. Okay, let's analyze those stages, starting with number 1, the cue.
The cue. This is the trigger. It's the initial signal that tells the brain, hey, it's time to run that automatic program.
And cues are literally everywhere.
They're everywhere, and they can be shockingly subtle, which is why we often feel like we're just doing things without really knowing why.
What are some examples?
Well, cues fall into a few major categories.
Yeah.
A specific time, like 7 a.m., a location, like walking into the kitchen, a preceding action, like finishing dinner.
Seeing a certain person.
Seeing a certain person, exactly. Or, and this is a huge one, an emotional state. Feeling frustrated, feeling bored, feeling anxious. Those emotions are powerful cues.
So the moment you walk into the living room, that space itself is cueing you for relaxation, or maybe entertainment, or, let's be honest, probably snacking, depending on what your brain is wired to that specific space.
That environment is a silent, constant director of your behavior, but the cue is only meaningful because it leads us directly to stage 2.
Which is the craving.
The craving. This is the motivational force behind the habit. Without a craving, the cue is it's just information. It has no power.
And this is a critical insight the material stresses, and it completely reframes how we think about things like addiction or compulsion. The craving is rarely for the action itself.
Almost never.
It's not that you crave the taste of the cigarette or the physical feeling of being on a treadmill.
No. You crave the state change that the action promises. It's the motivation underneath it all. You crave the feeling of stress relief, the cigarette promises, or you crave the feeling of accomplishment and energy that the run promises.
So you don't actually crave the act of doom scrolling on your phone.
Of course not. You crave the momentary escape from anxiety or maybe the stimulation that alleviates the boredom of the task you're supposed to be doing.
That makes the whole process so much more manageable. It means we aren't fighting the behavior itself. We're fighting the desire for a specific feeling. So if the cue is feeling stressed at 3:00 p.m., the craving is for relief. The next stages are just the brain's learned solution for getting that relief.
Which brings us perfectly to stage 3, the response.
The action.
This is the actual behavior. It's the physical action of the thought pattern. It's the execution of the habit, whether that's opening the pantry, lacing up your running shoes, or even just taking a deep breath.
And the response then has to deliver on that craving, which leads us to the final stage, number 4, the reward.
The reward. This is the payoff. It's the positive outcome that satisfies that initial craving and, crucially, closes the loop. It tells the brain, yes, this path worked. Let's remember this for next time.
So the reward creates the feedback loop that strengthens that neural connection that paves the road a little bit more.
Exactly. It could be the endorphin rush from exercise, the satisfaction of checking an item off your to-do list, the temporary relief from anxiety you get from your phone, or, the taste of a sugary snack. Without the reward, the habit doesn't get reinforced. The loop breaks.
Let's put this into practice with a detailed example, something really concrete. Let's look at a classic, painful cycle for someone trying to procrastinate less and say write more, only to find themselves stuck on social media.
Okay, let's map that out. So, the cue. You sit down at your desk. Your intention is to start a complex report or a writing project. The sheer magnitude of the task is the trigger.
Right, but also the emotion, that feeling of intellectual resistance.
That's the real cue, which leads to the craving. You're not craving Instagram. You're craving avoidance of the difficult cognitive work.
Or maybe just an immediate low-effort hit of stimulation to replace this high-effort task.
Exactly. You crave relief from the pressure of that blank page. So, the response. You pick up your phone, you open the app, and you start scrolling.
And then the reward.
You get a brief, immediate hit of novelty, distraction, or stimulation. The anxiety about the big report is momentarily suppressed.
And the brain learns. Stressful task at desk. Phone gives fast relief. The loop is reinforced. That path is now stronger, paved a little deeper.
Now let's flip it to a successful positive habit. Imagine someone who is aiming to maintain a sense of calm throughout their workday.
Go ahead.
The cue. A frustrating email lands in their inbox or a colleague asks a really aggressive question. The cue is that spike of stress or anger.
We've all been there.
The craving. They crave control over their emotional state. They want to release that tension so they don't react poorly and say something they'll regret.
So they're craving composure.
Composure, that's a great word for it. The response. They have learned, they've built a habit to stand up, walk to the window, and take 5 deep, slow breaths before they type or speak a single word.
And the reward.
They feel the immediate calming of their nervous system. The situation is handled without an explosion. They feel accomplished and measured and in control.
And the brain learns. Incoming stress. Deep breaths deliver control and calm. And suddenly, the habit of pausing becomes just as automatic as picking up the phone was for the procrastinator.
Understanding this four-stage cycle is genuinely the most powerful realization you can have about your own habits. It demystifies the behavior. It takes the shame and the guilt out of it.
Yeah, you're not lazy.
You're not lazy, you just have an efficient, well-reinforced neural path that's running the show. And that mechanism gives you 4 distinct leverage points, one for each stage where you can intervene and make a change.
I think that's the crucial element to emphasize for everyone listening. Before you start planning any changes, you have to diagnose the system that's currently running.
You have to.
If you try to change the response, like just stop checking your phone, without dealing with the underlying craving for relief, you're just going to fail.
You will. And if you try to deal with the cue without finding a new satisfying reward, you'll also fail. The loop will just find another way to close itself.
So the action item here isn't to start exercising tomorrow, it's to map out your current reality. Take that one nagging bad habit you have and the one powerful good habit you want and just analyze them through this loop. What's the real craving?
That discovery alone can be revolutionary.
Okay, so we've dissected the engine, the habit loop. Now, how do we actually rebuild it? How do we take control? The material provides a spectacular toolkit, synthesizing the best of behavioral science into what are called the 4 laws of behavior change.
And the beauty of these laws really lies in their simplicity. For any good habit you want to build, you just apply the rule. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
And if you want to break a bad habit, you simply invert the laws. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. It's a perfect architectural guide for changing your environment and your mindset.
It is. So let's take the time to really unpack the strategies that are associated with each law and make sure we see how they directly manipulate those 4 stages of the habit loop we just talked about.
All right, let's start with law number 1. This one targets the cue. Make it obvious.
Right. We need to stop waiting for inspiration to strike and start designing a world where the right actions are basically impossible to ignore.
And the source material says the environment is like an invisible hand guiding our actions.
It is. It guides your actions probably 50% of the time, often completely without your consent. The key strategy here is what's called choice architecture, consciously designing your environment to make the cues for good habits really visible and the cues for bad habits invisible.
Can you give us some really deep examples of how this environmental design works in practice?
Sure. Think about a professional, let's say, trying to learn a new language. Instead of just relying on the vague cue of, I should study when I'm at my computer, they could do something more intentional.
Like what?
They might set their desktop background to a simple phrase in the new language. Or they could put the physical textbook right in the center of their clean desk space. The cue, the reminder, is now physically unavoidable.
That's way more effective than just putting a reminder in your calendar.
Yeah.
Which is so easy to just swipe away and ignore.
It is. And for bad cues, the reverse is true. If I'm trying to stop excessive TV watching, I don't just put the remote down on the coffee table. I put the remote in a drawer in another room. Maybe I even hide the battery separately.
You're creating friction around the cue.
You're making the cue invisible and hard to access. And the material gives some great examples of commitment devices for bad habit cues. You mentioned the ice block method for credit cards earlier.
It sounds kind of silly, but it's psychologically brilliant.
It really is. If you freeze your credit card in a block of ice, the cue, the card itself, and the path to using it are still technically available, but only after, say, a 30-minute waiting period while it thaws.
And that 30-minute delay is crucial because impulse purchases are almost always driven by an immediate emotional cue and a craving for instant satisfaction.
Yeah, exactly. That waiting period allows your rational brain to catch up. It forces you to ask, do I still want this? Do I still crave this after the ice is melted? And often the answer is no. The impulse has passed.
Okay, so that's managing the environment. Let's move to a more proactive strategy for making good habits obvious. Habit stacking. This is so effective because it leverages those existing neural pathways we were just talking about.
It's just elegant engineering. You take an existing, deeply automated habit like brushing your teeth, making coffee, sitting down to eat, and you link the new desired habit directly onto it. The old habit becomes the definitive, specific cue for the new behavior.
And the formula is simple, but it has to be precise. After I current habit, I will new habit.
That precision is key.
Let's revisit John the engineer who wanted to meditate. His goal was probably something vague like I should meditate more.
And vague goals fail every time, but his existing habit was pouring his morning coffee. It's something he does every single day without fail. So the stack became, after I pour my morning coffee, I will sit for 60 seconds and focus on my breath.
And that 60 seconds is related to the 2-minute rule we'll discuss later, but the cue is the coffee. The cue is unmistakable. If the coffee is poured, the meditation must follow.
Yes. And that works because the brain already has this super strong, non-negotiable path for making coffee. By attaching the meditation to it, you're essentially transferring that automaticity from the coffee routine to the meditation routine.
It's behavioral piggybacking.
That's a great way to put it. Think about Sarah, the student who needed to review material. She stacked her flashcard review onto her lunch ritual. After I put my lunch plate in the sink, I will study 10 flashcards. That is a clearly defined cue, time, and location. It removes all ambiguity.
And the third strategy under Law 1 is implementation intentions. This is all about removing decision fatigue by pre-deciding every single element of the action.
We waste so much mental energy deciding things. When should I go to the gym? Which workout should I do? Where do I start? Implementation intentions remove that energy drain. The formula is, I will behavior at time and location.
I think of David the writer. He struggled with consistency until he stopped thinking, I need to write more, and he formalized it. I will write 1 page at 7 a.m. at my desk immediately after my alarm goes off. The specificity makes the commitment real and unavoidable.
It's the difference between saying, I'll call my parents this weekend, and I will call my mother at 7:30 p.m. on Sunday while I'm folding laundry. That specificity transforms a vague hope into an actionable plan, making the cue hyper-obvious.
All right, that moves us very nicely to Law 2. Make it attractive. So here we're targeting the craving stage. If the craving is for a feeling or a state change, we need to make the good habit deliver a stronger promise of that feeling than the bad habit does.
Absolutely. Humans are fundamentally wired to seek reward and anticipate pleasure. The strategies under Law 2 leverage this motivational drive, often by harnessing things we already enjoy doing.
And the primary technique here is one of my favorites, temptation bundling. This is pairing something you need to do with something you want to do.
It makes the necessary task the gateway to the desirable one.
This strategy is brilliant for overcoming that low-level reluctance for things we know are good for us but are kind of boring.
It is. Take Sarah the student again. Let's say she hated the treadmill, but she absolutely loved watching her favorite streaming show, which was only available on Netflix. The bundle becomes, she will only allow herself to watch Netflix while she is running on the treadmill.
So the treadmill is no longer a source of pain or boredom. It's the condition required to access the pleasure. She starts to crave the entertainment, and the physical response, the running, becomes attractive because it's tied directly to that craving.
Or for a professional who needs to do routine, but let's face it, dull data entry, they might bundle it. They only listen to their favorite true crime podcast while performing that specific task. The podcast becomes this attractive force that actually pulls them toward the dull response.
I think we often overlook how important social influence is in making habits attractive. We are deeply social creatures, and we have this inherent desire to belong to the group, to the tribe.
Oh, this is massive. If you want to become fluent in a hobby or an activity, the absolute fastest way to make it attractive is to join a culture where that behavior is the norm. The research shows we imitate the habits of 3 groups: the close, the many, and the powerful.
So if your close friends all enjoy running, running suddenly seems more appealing, more attractive, less weird.
Exactly. If Mark moves to a new city and joins a hiking group, hiking isn't a solitary chore anymore. It's a social event. It's a chance to build community, which fulfills that very deep human craving for connection and belonging.
This is really the secret sauce behind accountability groups and support systems like masterminds or AA. They are so effective because they shift the social environment.
They do. They make the desired habit, sobriety, exercise, intellectual growth, the expected, attractive baseline behavior of the group. If you're surrounded by high achievers, achievement stops feeling like an anomaly and it starts feeling like the default.
And the third strategy under Law 2, this one requires a bit more mental heavy lifting, mindset reframing.
It does. It's about consciously manipulating your internal dialogue to make the habit feel less like a tax and more like a privilege.
This addresses that common psychological resistance. When we feel exhausted and we think, oof, I have to go to the gym, our brain immediately links that activity to suffering and obligation.
And you have to actively interrupt that thought pattern.
How do you do that, though, when you genuinely feel exhausted? When it really does feel like a have to.
You have to focus on the immediate benefit, not the difficulty. So instead of, I have to wake up at 5:30 a.m., you reframe it. I get this hour of quiet focus and control before the world starts demanding things of me. You focus on the morning advantage, the peace, which is a much more attractive craving than just fighting exhaustion.
So it's about shifting from a loss frame, I lose an hour's sleep, to a gain frame, I gain an hour of control.
Exactly. And it works with saving money, too. Instead of seeing it as, I can't spend money on that latte, which feels restrictive and negative, you reframe it as, I am actively building financial security and freedom with this choice.
You're linking the action of not spending to a deep, desirable future identity.
Yes, you are linking the action to a powerful, attractive emotional reward. It just changes the entire emotional flavor of the activity, making the craving for the benefit outweigh the temporary discomfort of the action.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So that's law 2. What about law 3?
Law 3, make it easy. We now target the response, the actual performance of the habit. The cardinal rule of behavior change is that effort is the enemy. We will always, without fail, gravitate towards the path of least resistance.
So if we want to build good habits, we have to reduce the friction between ourselves and the action to as close to zero as possible. And for bad habits, we need to do the opposite. Artificially increase that friction.
Reducing friction is all about environmental priming and preparation. We often fail because we rely on having to make a hard choice in the moment. The goal is to remove the need for that choice.
I love the examples here. Someone aiming for better nutrition doesn't just promise to eat healthy. They prep their healthy meals on Sunday.
Right, so that when they are tired after work on a Wednesday, the easy choice, heating up the prepped meal, is the healthy choice. And the hard choice, ordering takeout, now requires significant friction.
You have to find the app, decide what you want, wait for the delivery, spend the money.
It becomes the path of most resistance. Or, for a person who wants to read more, they don't just put a book near their bed. They put the exact book they are reading, bookmark open, right next to a reading light, and this is key. They make sure their phone charger is all the way across the room. Every element is primed to make reading the absolute easiest choice when they get into bed.
Now, increasing friction for bad habits requires some intentional self-sabotage.
It does. If you struggle with distracted online shopping, deleting your saved credit card information from Amazon or other sites is a classic way to increase friction.
Because you have to get up, go find your wallet, pull out the card, manually input all 16 numbers.
That small cognitive hurdle is often enough to kill the impulse. Or, if you want to watch less TV, unplugging the console and storing the cables in a different room, you're putting a deliberate barrier in the path of that automatic response.
The impulse might still be there, but the response just requires way too much effort in the moment.
And the most important strategy in this law is arguably the 2-minute rule. This is the absolute key to mastering inertia.
I want to challenge this a little. If my goal is to run a 5K, how does putting on my running shoes, which takes 30 seconds, actually help me achieve that? Doesn't it just feel like I'm cheating?
It's the opposite of cheating. It's recognizing how human motivation actually works. The 2-minute rule is not about achieving the big outcome. It's about mastering the art of showing up. The goal is to make the start so ridiculously easy that you can't possibly say no.
So the immediate goal isn't to run a 5K. The immediate 2-minute goal is just to put on the shoes.
Correct. The goal is to cross the threshold, to overcome the inertia. Because once the shoes are on, once the guitar is out of the case, once the Word document is open on your screen, you have momentum.
And often, that 30-second action turns into a 10-minute action, which might turn into a 30-minute session.
It often does, but even if it doesn't, even if you just put the shoes on and take them right back off, you've still cast a vote for your desired identity as a person who exercises. You maintained the chain.
And the beauty of it is, it completely eliminates that all-or-nothing trap. Even on your worst day, you can do 2 minutes.
Which leads perfectly to the next strategy, automation. This is the ultimate make-it-easy strategy because it takes willpower and decision-making entirely out of the equation.
We're talking about using technology and systems to basically make the habit run itself.
Financial habits are the clearest example of this. Relying on yourself to remember to manually transfer money to a savings account every month is just unreliable. Life gets in the way.
But setting up an automatic transfer for, say, 10% of your paycheck to move to savings the very day you get paid.
That's automation. That is the path of zero resistance. You don't have to decide. The system decides for you. The good choice is the default choice.
The same goes for health. Using a pill organizer for the week removes that daily decision of, wait, did I take my vitamins today?
Yeah.
You set the system up once on Sunday, and then you just follow the predetermined easy path for the rest of the week.
And let's not forget priming the environment. This is a subtle but powerful one. It means setting up your surroundings immediately after one action to guarantee the smooth performance of the next intended action.
Like cleaning the dishes immediately after dinner. Why is that considered priming? It just seems like cleaning up.
Because if the kitchen is clean and clear when you go to bed, the environment is primed for a peaceful, focused morning routine tomorrow. You won't wake up to yesterday's mess, which would cue stress and disrupt the flow of a planned morning habit like reading or journaling. You are setting the stage for your future self to succeed.
You're making it easy for the you of tomorrow.
That's a perfect way to think about it.
Okay, so we've made it obvious, attractive, and easy. We have to close the loop. Law 4, make it satisfying. This targets the reward stage, and the key is that it must provide immediate positive reinforcement.
This is so critical because our brain is, it's an ancient piece of hardware. It evolved to prioritize immediate rewards, eating the berry now over delayed rewards like long-term survival.
Right. So when a good habit offers a long-term reward like better health in 20 years or financial freedom in 10 years, the brain struggles to reinforce the daily repetitive action that gets you there.
It just doesn't connect the dots very well over long time horizons. So we need to engineer a small, immediate reward to give the brain that instant hit of dopamine, linking the action now to something pleasurable.
What are some good strategies for that?
One of the best is using immediate tangible rewards. You have to make the abstract payoff concrete and instant. For example, if you saved, say, $15 by not buying lunch out, you should immediately transfer that exact amount into a designated vacation fund savings account.
So you get that instant visual and psychological reward of seeing the number go up. The satisfaction is immediate, even though the actual vacation is months or years away.
Precisely. Or focusing on sensory rewards. That jolt of fresh alertness you feel after a cold shower is an immediate visceral reward that reinforces the habit of taking one, far more than the abstract long-term benefit of improved resilience.
I think the most common and powerful strategy here is tracking. Using a habit tracker app or even just marking a big red X on a physical calendar, this taps into that don't break the chain psychology.
The visual chain itself becomes the immediate reward. Every time you place that X on the calendar for finishing your task for the day, you get a small dopamine hit. It affirms your progress. The motivation actually shifts from wanting the long-term result to simply wanting to maintain that perfect, unbroken chain. The chain becomes satisfying in its own right.
It makes abstract progress tangible. Tallying 30 straight days of consistent writing feels much more satisfying and real than just having a vague goal to publish a book someday.
Now, we can also integrate immediate guilt-free rewards, but we have to stress the guilt-free part. The reward cannot undermine the very habit you are trying to build.
Right, like rewarding a week of disciplined dieting with a massive cheat meal that completely negates all the effort. That's such a common mistake.
It's a huge mistake. The reward has to be aligned with your goals, or at the very least, neutral. For example, if your habit is practicing guitar for an hour, your immediate reward might be 15 minutes of uninterrupted, guilt-free video game time. You've earned that focused rest.
Or if the habit is writing consistently, the reward might be buying a new high-quality notebook or a fancy pen. It reinforces the identity of I am a writer without derailing the process.
Perfect example. And finally, accountability feeds directly into Law 4 because accountability provides immediate social satisfaction or dissatisfaction.
How so?
Well, knowing you have a gym buddy waiting for you at 6 a.m. means the reward isn't just the workout itself. It's the immediate satisfaction of fulfilling your commitment to your friend and the avoidance of the immediate discomfort of letting them down.
And making a public commitment, even just telling a few friends or posting on social media, brings the fear of public failure right into the present moment, which can be a powerful immediate motivator.
It makes the consequences immediate and social.
So we've mapped a loop, and we have this amazing toolkit to manipulate the 4 stages. But what happens when life gets messy? When the novelty wears off and the real hard work of mastery truly begins? That's what we need to tackle next.
Exactly. Getting a habit started is often the easy part. The novelty and the initial burst of motivation can carry you for a while. But long-term consistency, keeping it going when you're bored, tired, or when the results seem to plateau, that requires much deeper psychological strategies. The blueprint calls these the elements of mastery.
Let's start with what is maybe the most profound concept in the entire blueprint, moving beyond outcome and process
Yeah.
to identity-based habits.
This is the deepest shift you can possibly make. Most people focus on the outcome. The goal, lose 20 pounds. Some people who are a bit more advanced focus on the process, the system, go to the gym 3 times a week. But the true masters focus on the identity, the self. I am a healthy person.
Why is that shift in focus so crucial? What does it change?
Because when your focus is on the outcome or the process, the action feels like a transaction. It's something you have to do to get something else. But when the focus is on identity, the action feels like an affirmation. It's something you do because it's simply who you are.
That's a huge difference. If my focus is I need to go to the gym and I miss a day, I feel guilt and failure. But if my focus is I am a healthy person and I miss a day, I still identify as healthy. The missed day feels like an aberration, not a complete redefinition of who I am.
Exactly. When you are performing an identity-based habit, you are no longer struggling against yourself. You are simply being yourself. This removes so much of the internal friction and makes the habit the natural default behavior.
And the material gives us that great visual of casting a vote. How do you actually build that new identity? You can feel a bit abstract.
You build it by performing small, consistent actions that serve as votes for that identity. You first decide the type of person you want to be. I am a disciplined early riser. Then, every time you wake up when the alarm goes off, no matter how small or quick the action, you cast a vote for that identity. You are gathering proof, building a case for your new self.
So if I choose to skip the donut at the office today, I'm not just dieting in that moment. I'm casting a vote for I am a person who eats healthy. Over time, the accumulated votes define your belief about who you are, which in turn makes the hard choices easier.
It becomes a self-reinforcing loop. Your habits build your identity, and then your identity drives your habits. That belief system is far more powerful and resilient than any temporary burst of motivation.
Okay, so identity is the foundation. But next, we need to address the true killer of long-term habits, boredom. This is where the Goldilocks rule comes in.
Right. The Goldilocks rule dictates that for optimal motivation, we need to be working on tasks that are slightly challenging. They can't be too easy because then we become bored, and they can't be too hard because then we become discouraged. We need to stay in that optimal zone of difficulty.
This aligns with the psychological concept of being in a flow state, where the challenge of the task meets your skill level perfectly. When things get too easy, our brains wander and we seek novel distractions. That's why people so often quit habits right after they finally become automatic.
That's the paradox. And mastery is fundamentally about showing up and doing the same thing again and again, even when it's repetitive and tedious. This is what we call embracing the boredom. The key to staying in that Goldilocks zone is gradual escalation.
You have to constantly be adjusting the difficulty, just a little bit.
Yes.
When running becomes easy, you increase the speed or the distance slightly. When playing a simple guitar chord sequence is automatic, you introduce a slightly more complex technique.
And you must beware of the plateau. That moment when you feel comfortable, when it feels easy, that's actually when you are most at risk of quitting. The solution is always progressive overload. Add a little more weight, a little more cognitive load to keep the task engaging and keep yourself focused.
This really highlights the difference between an amateur and a professional, doesn't it? The amateur only works when they feel motivated. The professional understands that mastery requires working when it's boring, trusting the reliable system they've built.
Absolutely. And that's why the material stresses focusing on building effective systems rather than fixating solely on goals.
Can you articulate the difference there really clearly for the listener? What's the practical distinction?
A goal is a result you want to achieve. For example, finish writing a book. A system is the repeatable process that leads to that result. For example, write 500 words before 9:00 a.m. every single weekday.
So you fall in love with the system.
You fall in love with the system, and the goal becomes less important because you know that if you just execute the system consistently, the goal is the inevitable outcome. You focus on the daily routine, the process, and the outcome takes care of itself. It prevents that paralyzing pressure of the big, scary goal.
But no system runs perfectly forever. Setbacks are absolutely guaranteed.
They are. And success is not defined by never stumbling. It is defined by how quickly you get back on track.
This is where we need to remember that simple but incredibly profound rule: never miss twice.
One missed day is an accident. It happens. You had a terrible flight, a family emergency, you just felt unwell. Your number one priority must be to avoid the second consecutive miss.
Why is that second miss so crucial from a neurological perspective?
Because the second miss begins to define a new, unwanted pattern. It signals to the brain that the old, easy path of not doing the habit is returning and becoming the default again.
So if I miss the gym on Monday, I absolutely must, even if it's just for 10 minutes, go on Tuesday. Because if I miss Monday and Tuesday, getting myself to go on Wednesday is now 100 times harder.
That's the psychological inertia working in reverse. You want to avoid breaking the chain entirely, but if you do, you must repair it immediately. And to ensure you repair it, you need to use proactive planning specifically. If then, planning for your most likely obstacles.
This is like having a recovery protocol ready to go.
Exactly. You know what your obstacles are. If you travel frequently, your plan is, if I have to travel for work, then I will pack my resistance bands and do a 15-minute bodyweight routine in my hotel room before checking email.
Or if you know stress makes you emotionally eat.
Your plan is, if I have a high-stress meeting, then I will immediately step outside for a 5-minute walk before going to the kitchen. Having that pre-decided recovery action plan prevents you from having to make a difficult choice in a moment of crisis or low willpower. It maintains your sense of control.
And crucial to maintaining any system is ongoing review. Habits are not static. You change. Your environment changes. Your goals evolve.
Which is why you have to schedule a weekly habit review.
So this is a dedicated time slot.
Yes. Take 10 to 15 minutes, maybe every Sunday afternoon. Look at your tracking. Where did the system work well this week? Where did it fail? Was the failure due to a weak cue, too much friction, or a lack of an immediate reward? Then you implement small, tiny tweaks for the next week. This iterative process is how mastery is achieved, not through one grand overhaul, but through continuous marginal improvement.
And then there's the annual check-in, the annual identity review.
This is when you step back from the trenches. You look at the bigger picture. Who am I becoming? Are my keystone habits, the ones with the biggest ripple effects, still aligned with the person I want to be in this next phase of my life?
So maybe your focus shifts from, say, physical health to intellectual curiosity.
Exactly. And that might mean you need to reallocate your prime habit slots. It's an intentional re-architecture of your daily life to match your evolving identity.
Okay. We have covered the blueprint, the science, the 4 laws, the mastery strategies. But even with all this knowledge, people still stumble. We need to flag the most common traps, the key pitfalls the material warns us against.
Yes, because knowing the plan isn't enough if you fall into one of these classic traps.
The first one we've already touched on, but it needs highlighting because it's just so destructive. The all-or-nothing trap.
This is thinking that if you can't do the perfect, full, hour-long workout or write the perfect 1,000-word chapter, you shouldn't bother at all, and that just leads to complete derailment.
The solution, again, is to embrace imperfection. Remember that consistency, even at a low intensity, that 2-minute rule always beats sporadic high-intensity efforts. If you only have 5 minutes, do 5 minutes.
Another pitfall is ignoring the why. We get so focused on the mechanics of the system, on checking the box, that we completely forget the purpose behind it.
The habit becomes a meaningless ritual.
Exactly. You forget that the small, repetitive action is casting a vote for something bigger than itself. When the habit gets boring, which it will, you must proactively reconnect with that desired identity. Look at your why statement. Visualize the future benefits. That emotional anchor is what will pull you through the boredom.
We also need to caution against tackling too many habits at once.
Oh, this is classic beginner enthusiasm. You feel motivated, so you decide you're going to start meditating, running, journaling, and learning the guitar all on the same Monday.
And your focus is just spread way too thin.
It is, and you inevitably fail at all of them because you never build sufficient momentum in any one area. The advice is clear. Focus on 1, maybe 2 keystone habits first. Get those locked in and automatic, and then you can start to stack the rest on top.
And the pitfall that often keeps people from even starting in the first place: confusing motion with action.
This is the planning paralysis. Reading 20 books about running, buying the perfect shoes and gear, spending hours scheduling the perfect routine on your calendar. That's all motion. It feels productive, but it produces 0 outcome.
Action's actually putting on the shoes and walking out the door.
Yes, we have to prioritize doing, even imperfectly, over endless planning.
And finally, the killer of long-term belief: lack of patience.
We live in an instant gratification world, and we expect exponential results instantly. We look at the first 2 weeks of effort, and we see these tiny linear gains, and we get discouraged.
The solution is to understand and trust the compound effect.
You have to. Those tiny incremental efforts only seem small. Below the surface, the transformation is exponential, but it takes time to break through what the material calls the plateau of latent potential. You have to trust the system, celebrate the small wins, and know that your efforts are accumulating powerfully behind the scenes.
That is a comprehensive warning list. So now, let's synthesize this entire deep dive into a clear, actionable summary. This is the final action blueprint, the 6 steps you need to take right now based on all this material to activate lasting change.
This is your roadmap.
Step 1. Identify keystone habits. List 1 to 3 habits that, if you perform them consistently, would trigger the biggest positive ripple effect across your life, your health, your finances, your career. Focus your energy here first.
Step 2. Define your desired identity. For each of those keystone habits, write down a clear statement affirming the person you're becoming. I am a disciplined investor. I am an energetic person. This establishes your why and your internal purpose.
Step 3. Apply the 4 laws checklist. Go through each keystone habit and detail specific, tangible strategies. How will you make the cue obvious with stacking or environment design? How will you make the craving attractive with bundling or reframing? The response easy with the 2-minute rule or automation? And the reward satisfying with tracking or immediate rewards?
Step 4. Plan for setbacks. Identify the 2 most likely obstacles for each habit, things like travel, stress, or sickness, and create your specific if-then recovery plan. And always remember the cardinal rule: never miss twice.
Step 5. Schedule your reviews. Put a recurring 15-minute block in your calendar for your weekly habit review and set aside a time for your annual identity review. Treat this assessment time as seriously as you treat the habit itself.
And finally, step 6. Just start and be patient. Don't let planning paralyze you. Pick the 2-minute version of your first keystone habit and just start it today. Stay consistent, accept imperfection, and trust the compound effect to deliver the transformation over time.
That's the plan.
It's so easy to be seduced by the idea of instant dramatic change. But the evidence from all of this material shows that the power to transform doesn't lie in those occasional heroic efforts. It resides entirely in the quiet accumulation of small, consistent choices, day in and day out.
Those small choices, lacing up the shoes, opening the document, transferring the money, they are the votes you are casting for the future version of yourself. This blueprint gives you the tools to stop operating on autopilot and start consciously manipulating your world and your mind to favor your goals.
You now have the knowledge to move beyond relying on fleeting motivation and instead build robust, sustainable systems. You have, in effect, become the architect of your own habits and, by extension, the conscious designer of your future self.
So embrace the process, start small, and commit to the long game. The greatest transformation won't be seen today, but it begins today.
It really does.
And here is a final provocative thought for you to mull over. What is one small, simple action you could take right now before the day is over to cast a vote for your desired identity? Commit to just starting that one small thing, knowing you now have the entire system built for tomorrow.